apologies or substitutes, please?
Yes, Convener, there's apologies from Councillor Proctor and the substitute is David Fairweather, Councillor Fairweather.
Okay, thank you very much. Number 2, declarations of interest. Any colleagues got a declaration of interest? Councillor Stewart.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, I am a tenant of a council garage and I have taken advice on this, but I don't think there's any conflict, so I'll remain in the meeting and vote if necessary.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? No. Brilliant. Get you to put your hand down, please, Councillor Stewart. Okay, and we'll move on to item number 3, which is Housing Capital and Revenue Budget Performance Report 21-22. Any questions? No questions? Okay, any comments? No comments. So we'll move to the recommendations then. Committee happy to agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Great, thank you very much.
Agreed.
And we will go to report number 4, House and Revenue Account rent setting and budget strategy 22-23 to 25-26. And I would like to give notice of an amendment to this report. I'm going to read out my amendment and then I'm going to ask the clerk to circulate the amendment. I'm then going to ask colleagues to agree to a 20-minute recess. And I have arranged for committee services to have 2 breakout teams, so two breakout teams meetings, one for opposition colleagues and one for administration colleagues, where there will be officers from Housing, Legal and Finance there to answer that you may have from my proposed amendment. The other point I probably would like to make on this, I don't see this amendment as a political issue, and I'll be moving the amendment, but I would just say that to show the public of Angus we're all working together to help reduce the cost of living crisis. After the recess, I'd like to reach out and ask for the amendment to be seconded by an opposition colleague, so this committee can send out a message of unity to the residents of Angus. So I'll leave that in your thoughts as you go through the amendment with officers in the recess. So I'll read out the amendment, which is: given the bleak financial outlook for families all over Angus, from the prospect of massive rises in gas and electric, a rising inflation affecting food and petrol costs, together with other household pressures, I, as convener of Communities and Finance, believe that this year's council rent increase should only be 1% rather than 2%. This will send out a strong signal that listening and understands the pressures on Angus families' household budgets in our social housing sector. I therefore propose that the recommendations in report 32-22 be amended, which you, if I can ask now please to circulate the amendment and the documents that go behind it.
That's it circulated, Convener.
Thank you. Colleagues, can I ask you to agree to a 20-minute recess, please? We'll arrange for you to go into the appropriate breakout meeting.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you.
John or Sandra, could you stop the live stream?
Right, Councillor Duff, do you want to begin? Can we
Yeah,
finish off our
I
discussion?
think it's unacceptable. This amending papers is completely unacceptable. And as Councillor MacDonald will say, giving us 10 minutes to read whatever it is, a
Sorry,
15-page
20 minutes, Councillor Duff.
Well, you know, and we didn't. None
Actually,
of us knew what
30
was.
minutes, I have to say, because you're 10 minutes late coming back.
Well, why
So
couldn't you
30
have printed
minutes.
it last week? I mean, it's just
I'm
unacceptable.
sorry, this is an officer paper, and I'm bringing an amendment to the officer's paper. These reports are not my reports. They're not the administration's reports. They're officers' reports. And I'm sorry, but I think you and your team do bring amendments and motions to this.
We're not the administrator entitled to bring amendments. You have pre-agendas.
I'm
which we
entitled
need
to
to
bring an
sort this out.
amendment to, should I wish to as well, to an officer paper, which is what I'm doing.
And I assume that Councillor Stewart is not in the meeting because he clearly has a vested interest, because he's now going to be voting on a 1% increase for his garage rather than 2%. So he must declare an interest.
Duff, sorry, Councillor Duff, I think Councillor Stewart's already declared an interest. If you'd been listening at the start of the meeting,
Sit in the meeting.
is that not a decision for Councillor Stewart to make?
Well, it is, but if you know, he's clearly got a financial vested interest.
Well, that's your opinion. He has made a determination on, after reading the code of conduct.
Well, it's a matter of fact. It's not an opinion.
Well, it's not for me to determine or you to determine. It's for Councillor Stewart to determine, and he's made that decision. Right, Councillor Speed.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Yeah, I just want to question. I mean, you stated that this was a non-political decision, and yet we broke up into kind of like what would seem pre-planned breakout spaces that were putting the administration and the opposition into separate rooms, which surely doesn't allow for that kind of one discussion to take place, which I feel would have been much more healthy and beneficial for our tenants.
Right.
Can I just
stop you here, Councillor Speed? Sorry, that discussion you're asking for should take place in a public forum, which is the meeting now.
Absolutely, which was the point I was going to come into.
There was two breakout rooms, was officers wished to brief and allow elected members to ask questions, and that's why there were two breakout rooms. Anything you wish to say or any other colleague wishes to say should be done in the public forum, which is about what we're ready to do.
Absolutely, and that was the further point I was away to make, is that we need to have an open and honest and transparent debate.
Thank you very much, and that's what's about to happen. So, can we move to the discussion and the debate? Is that okay with everybody? Yes?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So I will move and speak to my amendment, and then I will ask for a seconder, and we'll take it from there. So, as convener of communities for the last 4 years, most of you now know I occasionally deviate from the plan when I believe it's the right thing to do. And today is one of these occasions. I will shortly outline a new proposal and move an amendment to today's report, which I'd like to just point out does have the unanimous support of my administration colleagues. And I hope after today's recess, we can get all colleagues to agree this way forward. My other role in Angus Council is the convener of finance, and I'm currently preparing Angus Council's budget, which will be one of the most difficult in this council's history. My amendment today is the first building block in that budget by trying to reduce the effect of the cost of living crisis engulfing Angus residents. Gas, electric, petrol, food, interest rates are all increasing dramatically, and this will cause massive stress and strains on our Angus residents' household budgets. This council has very few direct levers it can use to affect change in household budgets, but setting the rate of increase on Angus Council social housing rents is one that is available to us today to help one sector of our residents. I'd like to thank the Tenants Group for all their hard work and engagement with residents and council officers to reach a conclusion to recommend a 2% increase. And of course, I must apologise to them for bringing an amendment to differ from their recommendations. But I hope once they reflect, they will support my proposal. Given the massive cost of living crisis facing Angus residents, it is my judgment that we should set a minimal increase of 1% this year. It is essential that in setting the new rent increase that we also get the housing revenue account, HRA capital plan.
Is now exiting.
The capital plan is what is used to deliver new houses, bathroom and kitchen replacements, new heating, windows and our green efficiency projects. By opting to go for the minimal 1% increase, this will allow us to continue with our agreed investment strategy with minimal issue to the capital plan. These upgrades to our properties improve the lives of our tenants and in some cases reduce household budgets by making the homes more efficient. The other major benefit is that it supports jobs in the companies employed by Angus Council who do the works and supply the materials. Again, it's my judgment that given the cost of living crisis, this is the right time to temporarily pause higher rent increases, go for a 1% rise and focus our efforts on reducing our social housing tenants' cost of living. I would ask for a seconder from the opposition if they feel they can support my proposal. I would ask for this amendment to be agreed unanimously. In doing so, we can send out a strong signal that this council is listening,
is now joining,
understands the pressures on Angus families' household budgets in our social housing sector. Thank you. So would anybody like to, before, obviously I'm keen that we can find unity here, would an opposition member like to second that, or shall I ask one of my administration colleagues to second this?
My hand's raised, Councillor.
Councillor Brace, sorry.
Yes, well, I will second your amendment, but I do have to say I'm deeply concerned really about the way this has been done. We've only been allowed 20 minutes to consider this decision. You've known this amendment was coming for an awful lot longer than that. You could have given us proper time to duly consider. You chose not to, and that's very disappointing.
I think, Councillor Brace, can I just make another point?
Having spoken to the officers in the breakout session, we feel that while this sort of increase, way below inflation, is not sustainable for the long term, we feel that it is doable in this year only, and so we will agree to a 1% increase.
Thank you, Councillor Brace. Can I just make the point which I made in what my statement, this is my proposal as a temporary 12 months pause. And secondly, I'd like to make the point that yourself and any other one of my opposition colleagues had the opportunity to work with officers and bring their own amendment to this report. So, you know, I'm a bit concerned that you want to criticise the person who is actually bringing the amendment, which you're happy to support, when you have
Councillor Salmon,
that is
not the problem here. The problem is that you didn't consult. You just sprung this on everyone and gave 20 minutes to consider it.
Report.
It's not the way to govern properly.
I'm sorry, Councillor Brace, that's your opinion. My opinion is that any member of this committee can bring forward an amendment to an officer report, which is what I have done. Councillor Speed.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm more than happy to support your amendment, Councillor Salmond. I think, you know, I do agree with the way in which it could have been done better. However, just on the kind of the points that you raised around the tenant steering group and their involvement, that's usually what does give us a steer in terms of our decision making on the rent setting, is because we hear from them and what they see as the most favourable. Do you know, how does that work? Do they not need to be part of this amendment or this process? Can I just get clarity on that? Are we okay to take this without their involvement?
Yes, I think it's a decision for the committee, but I'm more than happy for one of my officers to address that point. Mr. Morrow, do you want to cover off that, please?
Yeah, I think I can come in there. I think, as probably said in the breakout session, Councillor Speed, you know, there's a balance to be struck. I think we obviously need to take cognizance of what the tenant steering group recommend, but also obviously what the consultation with the wider tenant body informs us with as well. So, but council can still take a view on what the final rent rise should look like. Which you'll see in the papers, that the consultation response from the wider tenant body actually differed from the recommendation from the tenant steering group in this case, and the tenant body, the slim majority in favour of a slightly lower increase than was recommended by the tenant steering group. So I think, as I say, a balance needs to be achieved, and obviously the economic climate is changing at quite a fast pace at the moment, and because the consultation on the rent increase was based on a CPI figure based back in July. Obviously, as we all know, the rate of inflation has gone. The council can still take a view, but as I say, take account of the views of tenants and the tenant group in the overall decision.
I think, Mr. Moore, I think that's a point I would want to push as well, that obviously this consultation took place a little time ago, and things have changed rapidly in the last four weeks, especially the change in the energy cap, which we're now speaking about a 50% increase on gas and electric. So that's one of the motivators behind my decision to do this.
Can I come back again, convener, if that's okay with you?
On you go.
Yeah, it was just to follow up on that. I mean, some may wonder why we're even debating this in terms of an increase, because absolutely in principle, this is the right thing to do, given the challenges that tenants, have been faced with, the financial challenges, as well as many who are living in housing that, hasn't had the repairs or works done to, or the aids and adaptations, because of the backlog of work and the pressures within the industry. But I think the questions that I really wanted to kind of ask was of Mr. Morrow in the meeting. Was, would this have any impact on our ability to deliver some of those crucial kind of programmes such as heating or bathroom replacement, or our capital programme, and the ability to deliver more affordable housing, which is absolutely crucial. So, I did ask that, and in the order of kind of public transparency, I just want to make that known as to how there would be concerns, because we obviously want to be able to ensure that we can continue to deliver on the works that are being scheduled, and that this wouldn't impact on our finances and our abilities to do that. So thank you, convener, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think I made that clear myself, but I'm happy for Mr. Morrow to reinforce that.
Yeah, convener, I can come in and just reassure Councillor Speed that, as we said in the breakout session, the HRA has the capacity to increase borrowing to sustain the level of capital spend that we have identified in the programme over the course of the 30-year business plan. We have sufficient capacity before we reach the threshold of our borrowing ratio. So, as we said, we can still continue to deliver our commitments, and those are, as you know, a priority for insulating our homes more to meet zero carbon by 2045, and obviously the accelerated programme that we have at the moment is directly benefiting tenants, because the more quickly we can deliver those energy efficiency improvements, the more we can lower the costs to combat those increases in fuel prices that the convener has talked about. So yeah, I can give that reassurance that the capital plan will remain as we've outlined.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Speed, for your support. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, convener. I take pride in being able to read my papers thoroughly, and I don't feel I was given that opportunity with this amendment. I think Councillor Braze's point is valid. You are entitled, of course, to bring an amendment to an officer paper that you get a pre-agenda and could make changes to in advance, but you chose not to. You are entitled to do that. But you have worked with the SNP group and opposition councillors previously, where you've given them a little heads up so they can actually look at what's happening and go through the papers properly. There's 10 pages with financial information that we've had to study, and then you've got to have a wee chat about it, and you've got to ask officers. Now, I fully support this based on the reassurances provided by officers. But I would have liked an opportunity to have compared and contrasted, looked at the options we have going forward for future works, and it's based on those reassurances from our officers in the breakout session that I can back this proposal today and this amendment. But in future, if we are truly going to go down this working together non-political approach, I personally, without being in a conflict at all, would have appreciated a little bit more time just to have a look at it.
Thank you. Well, in the spirit of your comments there, I will re-ask Councillor Duff the question I asked him about 4 weeks ago. Would you like to meet with me to work on a joint budget for Angus Council in early March? And the answer to me was no, he would not like to speak with me. So maybe you would want to reflect in your own group and come back to me hopefully very soon, because we need to finalise the main budget.
What's that got to do with rent setting?
It's exactly the spirit you've just said about working together. And
wait a minute, I've used your own words. Your own words at the start of the meeting, convener, were that you wanted to work together on this.
Yes, exactly. I want to work together on many things, and I've invited Councillor Duff, who is the opposition finance spokesman, to have a discussion about the main budget, which has been declined by Councillor Duff. And that's the point I want to make. So you can't pick and choose when you're wanting to work together, if you want to work together. So,
Convener, this is the rent setting meeting.
Correct. I'm just making a point. Thanks for that point, Councillor Braes. Now we'll move to Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Yeah, I would reiterate the complaints we have made before, that this is not the right way to do business. It is game playing, and it's frankly irresponsible.
It's nothing of the kind, Councillor Duff.
Well, please don't interrupt me, please. If you let me speak and you know, let me have my say.
Just make some sensible points instead of trying.
Well, I am making sensible points. I have attended 10 rent setting meetings in my time as a councillor. This is for the first time the administration has amended the paper. So I think it's an exceptional way of doing things. You have got form on this at the council meeting in September of last year. I think the council is in a fairly serious financial position, which you well know, because you will have had the same letter that the SNP group has come from the Director of Finance, basically saying the council is in a very, very precarious position. I would like to see us having good quality council houses. I would like to see us build more. I would like to see some of the shocking houses that I've been in recently improved and repaired and brought up to a good standard. We're not going to, we're going quite happy to go along with this on the basis that Mr. Morrow and Mr. Lumsden have assured us it's financially competent. We accept it's financially competent. I would have real questions about how prudent it is. I don't think it's prudent, and it doesn't augur well for your budget, because we all know the financial position the council is in, and I think what we need at the moment is grown-up thinking and a bit of prudence.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure, Councillor Duff, you are aware that the General Fund and the HRA are totally separate pots of money, and the HRA is in a very strong financial position. And I'm pretty sure
aware of that, yes.
Also know that as the finance convener, I would not bring forward anything that was not competent. So I have had exactly the same advice and assurance from the officers that you named, that what I'm bringing forward is it can be delivered. So I wouldn't do that if I hadn't had the same assurances from the officers that I've just given you the same assurances. So thank you. We'll move to Councillor Fairweather.
Thank you, Convener. I must say I'm disappointed with the bickering. I thought this would have been open arms for all our members. I am delighted though that the SNP and some other colleagues are backing this amendment. And Councillor Salmond, I'd like to thank you for bringing this amendment. I'm absolutely sure that the residents will be delighted that we are trying to help them as costs go up. It's probably not going to help much, but it is going to help. We certainly should be thanking you. We certainly shouldn't be criticising. And Councillor Duff, it is totally responsible to help our tenants. That is what has been brought forward today is certainly not irresponsible. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I fully just endorse your comments there, Councillor Fairweather? Thank you for that. Councillor Moore?
Yes, thank you, Convener. I hope that everybody can be upfront about their involvement in this so that we all know where we stand. If we stop trying to make petty political points and consider our residents. We are in a very difficult financial position as a council. The residents, and yes, the cap has been removed and we've all heard about that. But I can tell you from personal experience, with those utility companies that went under and were transferred to another utility provider, you saw massive increases in the utility bills to start with. Mine went up 24%, and then we're going to have the cap on top. And I'm sure that we've got residents who are in that same boat, plus job losses, recovery from furlough. Let's stop arguing and let's just agree it and let the residents know where they're standing.
Thank you, Councillor. I was not expecting to have some of the comments that have been made today made. I thought this was something that our residents would welcome with open arms, and that we as elected members would think was a good way forward to help support them. But I think we're going to get there in the end, which is what we're looking for. So we'll move to Councillor Durno now.
Yeah, I welcome the you're going to take the rent down. Well, you're not going to put the rent up by more than 1%, but I do have worries about it when I get my housing officer sending me messages saying that he can't fix garden fences because he doesn't have any money. He can't do this because he hasn't got any money. So as long as you make sure that the council officer in Arbroath gets some money to fix all the things he wants, then I'll go ahead with this. But if you're not going to increase the rent and not do any work, then there's not much point. So let's hopefully make sure that it filters down to the man on the ground. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a misleading message you're putting out there. I'd like Mr. Morrow to address that. This will not affect the amount of investment and support we give to our tenants. Mr. Morrow, can you please give Councillor Durno some reassurance on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, as we've said before, the rent increase, if it were 1% rather than 2%, means that we'll carry on with the capital programme and our commitments in the planned and unplanned maintenance to obviously look after our properties. But it just means that we'll have slightly less income, but we can borrow slightly more to compensate for that. In terms of being able to fix the things like fences, as you mentioned there, Councillor Durno, some of it's to do with the capacity with our unplanned maintenance contractors and capacity, obviously, in our staffing to be able to, if you like, process the repairs that are required. So it's not always about the amount of money that's available. Sometimes it's about the resources at our disposal. But I can certainly give you the assurance that we'll do all we can to carry out the repairs that are required to keep the houses up to the level they should be.
Thanks, John. I won't hold you to that. We'll just see what happens.
Okay, and now Councillor Spear, I think I've been very generous with you, so I'm going to ask, does anybody else want to say a comment before I bring this meeting to a close, since there isn't anybody opposing?
Can I make a comment,
Councillor Cheap? Oh, sorry, Councillor Cheap.
Yep, thanks very much. Sorry, I'm a bit remote from you all at the moment. So, yeah, as far as this is concerned, I think, there's two things here. There's been mentioned the word public transparency. I think Councillor Speed mentioned public transparency, and as I say, I haven't actually seen the papers. I wasn't able to, but just for the avoidance of doubt, am I right in saying that rather than going ahead with a 2% increase and making it a 1% increase, that additional loss of income is equivalent, I think you said, to £278,000. Is that correct?
Who wants to answer that from finance? So it's not me that's answering it, and it's a finance representative.
Yes, convener, 278,000 reduction in rent and service charge.
Okay. Thanks very much. So we're foregoing £278,000 in rent by doing this, and I think you said it was being balanced in the budget by a reduction in CSR. But can you be, again, for public transparency, can you say what that means?
Yes.
How it's being financed. You're actually are we borrowing extra money to finance this?
Yeah, exactly, Councillor Cheap. There's a commentary to the amendment by the Director of Finance, and that makes clear that the £278,000 income reduction will have to be balanced by a reduction in capital funded from current revenue. And because capital funded from current revenue will be lower, it means we have to borrow more. So we will be borrowing over the period of the plan more because of this reduction in income, and we anticipate the total amount of extra borrowing at 1.246 million.
Okay,
All right,
thank you,
okay.
Mr. Mills.
No, it's just that's fine. I think it's just it's obviously that's not sustainable. But you know, for this year, if there seems to be momentum behind this, that's fine. I think listening to all of this, Councillor Salmond, if you just put this out to everybody with 24 hours notice, we could have avoided all this argy-bargying. But you chose not to do that. But
I
yeah,
think
that's the way it
that suggestion works both ways, colleagues. Now, I know Councillor Speed's already spoken and Councillor Duff's already spoken, so is there anybody else would like to make a comment that hasn't spoken? Then we'll bring this meeting to a close.
Thank you, convener.
Okay, so there's nobody else wishes to speak that's not spoken already, and I think we've got an agreement on my amendment. So I'll just check with the committee's team that we can now end the meeting.
Yes, I just want to confirm that they're happy with the recommendations in your amendment.
Okay, there isn't any objections, so I assume they are.
Agreed.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you very
Agreed.
much, colleagues, and
Bye.
thanks for attending today's meeting.
Number 4.
This is number 4. Am I right, Fiona?
Yes, if you stop the live stream.